All right, here we are.
We are.
Here we are. I want to make sure that notification went out. I don't see a notification. Oh, I won't see a notification on this one. Hang on. And then, yep, it went out. I see it. Okay. All right, let me get to the comments. Okay, so we're going to talk about Jimmy Ray Rodgers, who was convicted in a murder for hire plot after Dr. Teresa Severs was found bludgeoned to death on the kitchen floor with a hammer, might I add. A Florida jury reached a verdict against one of the men accused of taking the life of a beloved Florida doctor after she returned home from vacation in 2015. Jimmy Ray Rodgers, one of these three men accused of killing Severs, has been found guilty of second-degree murder, robbery, and trespassing. He is scheduled for sentencing on November 18th and faces the possibility of life in prison. Teresa's husband, Mark Severs, 51, was the mastermind behind his wife's murder, according to prosecutors. Severs is accused of recruiting childhood friend, 51-year-old Curtis Wainwright Jr., to help out with the gruesome crime. Wright is accused of recruiting Rodgers, a former jail cellmate, to help him. On June 28, 2015, as Teresa returned home from a trip to Connecticut, she was bludgeoned to death with a hammer inside her Bonita Springs, Florida home. Authorities said the murder was planned in advance. Severs knew his wife left the Connecticut family trip early for work purposes. He stayed behind a few days longer with their daughters, ages 9 and 11 at the time. He's accused of orchestrating the plan to have Wright and Rodgers at the home ready to attack before Teresa arrived. Severs was unhappy in his marriage, as reportedly evidenced inside Teresa's journal, according to Naples Newsdays. Severs also had money issues, while his wife had a $4 million life insurance policy, prosecutors previously said. A few months after the murder, authorities arrested Wright and Rodgers. While both men initially denied any involvement, Wright eventually confessed in 2016 and took a plea deal for second-degree murder. He agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. Mark Severs, who is scheduled to stand trial after Rodgers, was arrested several months after the state attorney released documents in December of 2015 accusing him of hiring his co-defendants to kill his wife. Prosecutors said the motive was money from Teresa's insurance policy. Rodgers was initially facing charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and first-degree burglary. He no longer faces the death penalty. Okay, so that's the background. So where do you want to start our discussion at?
Why?
Right.
Why? I have to say I'm surprised in this case that there was no. Usually, people get caught because of forensic evidence and DNA and all this other stuff. This was one of those very rare cases that there really wasn't a whole lot of that and stuff. So that's why I had some doubts early on this case. As far as was he really involved? Was he not involved and stuff? And then we have the only testimony we had was from well, we did have the girlfriend, but we did also have you know the other his friend that was a known liar and criminal as well. So I don't know. This was a very strange case. I don't know. Go ahead. I'm trying to collect my thoughts. I I was really shocked that he would agree to do this in the first place. I just don't see, especially Jimmy only was going to get $10,000 in all of this. To me, $10,000 is not enough to go along, let alone actually strike someone in the head and kill them for $10,000. But are you there? Am I still on? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Am I muted? Can you hear me? Hello? What happened? Uh-oh. What happened? Are you still there? Hello? Can anyone hear me? What happened to Kim? Is she gone? Did we lose Kim? Oh, we lost her? Oh. Okay then. I'm sure she'll be right back, so we'll just carry on with. So, I'd love to say that I just cannot believe that in this day and age that husbands still, and even wives, but mostly husbands, the husbands can still think that they could do this kind of thing and get away with it. I mean, with all the cameras and the DNA and all the nonsense that we have going on nowadays where they can track you everywhere you go and stuff, I can't believe that people still think that they can get away with something so stupid as to hire someone to kill your wife so you can get their insurance money. You're the first person they're going to suspect. The first person you're going to suspect is the husband. Do people not watch television? I'm sorry. Maybe I've watched too many Lifetime movies or something, but I don't understand how people think that they can get away with this. And, he thought he had the best plan in the world where he was out of town and, oh, let me hire my friends to go and kill my wife and then I'll get all the insurance money and we haven't had the trial of the husband, which I cannot wait for, but I guarantee you that there's some other woman involved. There always is in these cases. I mean, we just keep having these cases over and over again, and it's like these men are just so stupid that they think that they could just get away with something so stupid as to hire somebody to kill my wife, and then, oh yeah, I'm gonna run off with all the insurance money.
Can you hear me?
And I'm
Can
gonna
you
live
hear
happily
me?
ever after. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I completely disappeared.
Yeah, I know you did. I was just talking right here.
My computer totally lost connection with my camera and headset. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I wasn't looking down. I was trying to look down and go,
Yep, it's okay. It's okay. So I don't know what I missed, but we were starting to talk about the trial.
Yeah, I was just saying how I just cannot believe in this day and age that people think they could still get away with this stuff. That it just, I mean, maybe years and years and years ago, but now, like the lawyer said, as soon as he got up, he's like, you're tracked everywhere you go. I mean,
well, right.
How can you possibly think that? And then if this husband was going to do this, hire somebody that's not hire
a little
a
smarter.
Yeah, hire somebody that's a professional. I'm sure there's professional hitmen out there. I mean, you're gonna on your friend's wedding, you're gonna ask to do this stuff. I'm like, I don't know. And then I agree with the lawyer that said, oh, the other friend got up there and Curtis acting like he's so wonderful.
Right.
Oh, I tried to talk him out of it. I'm like, You are a liar and a criminal, right? You're trying to get up there and act like you're such a nice guy and stuff. You're no different than old Jimmy over there. Jimmy's just quieter and looks like he's a little loony. But I mean, you're not any better than him and stuff. I mean, I'm sure that you jumped. I mean, I can't see it being, oh well, no, Mark, maybe you should think about it and stuff. You know, I I don't know. You know, he's already a criminal, so I think he jumped at the chance to get that money and stuff. So it seems like he didn't need a whole lot of convincing. You know.
The thing that gets me, Eminem Mama said, I think they think they're so smart they'll never get caught, which is, I guess they do, because uh and he like picked the dumbest people in the world to hire to do this, to be quite honest.
Absolutely stupid.
So so um the prosecution had two people that were prosecuting the case, and then the defense, there was four lawyers. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I will tell you, the woman that woman on the that one woman on the defense team drove me absolutely insane. But so here's the thing: they had really good evidence. It is unfortunate that they had the only evidence that they had actually putting Jimmy Rodgers there at the scene, really, was the fact that he confessed to his girlfriend and that she testified for the prosecution, and Curtis Wright, his testimony, obviously, of him helping him. Now, I actually did not doubt that what Curtis was saying happened. Probably did happen. I think the biggest reason why why Jimmy Rodgers did not get murder one is because the way that the testimony went, there would have had to been a second hammer, and they couldn't find the
They
second
never
hammer.
found. Yeah, right.
But here's the thing: they found. I mean, even Jimmy's own lawyers pretty much put him in the crime because they never said he wasn't there. What their thing was is, oh, he didn't know what he was there for.
Right, he was just on vacation.
He was well, I think their premise really was because Curtis Wright had narcolepsy, that he needed somebody to drive with him because he had been in some serious accidents. Okay, and let's look at that too. That's another thing that got me. If he really bludgeoned this woman that many times, because she was hit like 20, was it 29 times? Something like that.
Something like
It was an ungodly amount of times. And yes, that normally, shows rage, usually against the person that they're doing that to. But I can't imagine him. I mean, the way I saw him, hobbling around a bit in court, how in the world did he do that by himself? Like, that didn't even make sense to me. But they did recover, Jimmy's cell phone and the overalls that he took from work, on the side of the road where the girlfriend said they threw him out the window. And who's to say that the hammer wasn't in that mess that they threw out the window, and they just never found it?
right, right. I don't understand why he left the other one there. They left the one there. I know he didn't. They didn't touch it with. They had gloves on and stuff. But who leaves them? Who leaves the murder weapon behind? Again, not very smart people.
Well, let's face it, the fact that Curtis Wright was not willing to shoot her. Okay, this is another thing that didn't make any sense to me either. Was not willing to shoot her with a gun because he's a convicted felon. Now, mind you, all of his charges before this were all drug related charges. but he's a convicted felon, and they're not supposed to have firearms. But he
Uh,
was still willing to kill her with a hammer, evidently. But he was not willing to use a gun, which would have been a lot easier. They could have been in and out. And then how about the fact that they got tracked by Walmart cameras because they got there so early that they, were hopping around the town, and they knew, what they bought at Walmart and everything else. I mean, seriously.
and he knew about all the cameras and stuff. He said he had installed that stuff before. Yeah, oh yeah, I know all about that stuff. That's why I was like, and at one point, I was thinking, what if this poor little Jimmy guy was younger? He's so much younger than him and stuff, young and stupid and naive. Still a kind of a criminal, but a dumb in his own right. And that he looked up to this Curtis, and Curtis said, "Hey, I'm going up to Florida and stuff. I got to do some stuff, and will you bring this and this and this with you?" And old Jimmy's like, "Okay, Curtis." And stuff. I'll go with you and stuff. And so they would go on this trip and stuff. And that's why Jimmy's shown going around taking pictures and being all dumb and stuff and not thinking. And Curtis knows exactly what they're going to go do. And then when they actually get there and stuff, and they're in that act of doing that and stuff, that all of a sudden Jimmy gets pulled into the whole thing
See,
because
I
I
don't
don't
buy
know.
that. Okay, so okay, so you're going from Missouri to Florida. We happen to live in Missouri. So
Right.
so now let's just think about this. If I called you up tomorrow and said, "Hey, we need to make a trip to Florida tomorrow." Now, tell me you wouldn't ask me why that was, like why I didn't give you more notice. Like, tell me you would ask, "Well, what do we have to go to Florida for?" Or if I said I needed some help with something, would ask seriously?
Well,
I,
Curtis had been gone up there before to work on their computer stuff, so he'd been gone there before and stuff. So if he asked him
twice
to
in 3
drive
years.
to drive because of his sleeping problem. I mean, yeah, you said, "Hey, come along because I can't stay awake at the wheel. I need somebody to drive and stuff. Help me with the driving, so help me to make sure I don't fall asleep at the wheel and stuff." I mean, he's younger and
Right,
naive,
but
and maybe he looked up to him. I don't
wouldn't
know.
that worry you though, considering he's a convicted felon 5 times over, mind you, right? 5 times over. Like, what? I don't know. I would think that. I mean, yes, you can be young and dumb, but we all know, um, and just from watching shows on TV, even as unrealistic as they are, um, that if you are hanging around with people who commit crimes or could possibly be committing crimes, you're going to get in trouble with them. It's the same thing like my daughter, for instance. She's always wanting to go with these friends to the mall and stuff. And my concern is always not necessarily that my daughter's going to, steal something, but what if one of them steals it? All of those girls are going to get in trouble. They're all going to
Right.
get in trouble for it. And yeah, she's 14, so she doesn't really understand the impact of that, but um, by the time she's 20, she's going to know that, yeah, if I hang around with these people and they're doing something nefarious that they should not be doing and they get in trouble, I'm going to get in trouble too.
Right.
And I can't, I can't believe that he had no clue. I can believe that there was information withheld from him. I do not think that he was so naive that he didn't know that something. I mean, he packed his backpack with stuff that he needed to. I mean, why would he have taken um, the overalls and um, from work, and what else did he have? He had
Duct
duct
tape.
tape and some kind of wire or rope. What was it? She said some.
Yeah, because they wrapped themselves up to make sure they were both wrapped up in it and
Right.
stuff, and they wrapped up their wrists and stuff so that they wouldn't get any.
Right, and
Um,
let's be fair. One of the things that the defense came back with, you know, oh yes, we they found this cell phone and the overalls on the side of the road, blah blah blah, but they never found any blood or evidence um on the overalls. Well, who's to say, that the overalls hadn't been cleaned before? I mean, let's face it, he could have dipped them in bleach for all we know before he threw them out there. And then, yeah, they're not going to find anything on them. And, you know, they were out there for, was it 11 days? I mean, come on. We know how our weather is here. There could have been
mhm.
enough rain that a lot of that stuff could have, any kind of fibers or whatever could have washed off of it. Um, Plus, you don't know how much it maybe, blew around or there's just no telling what happened to it while it was on the side of the road. I mean, we have lots of trash on the side of the road here,
Yeah.
on the highways. So, there's no telling. That did not surprise me that they didn't find anything on that. And also, if why did he why did he break up his phone and throw it on the side of the road? I mean,
Well, that's
they had ways that they were tracked with the Garmin GPS, right? I mean, do people not understand how Garmin GPSs work? Because let's face it, if you are using something that can give you map directions, even if you're not connected to your cell phone service, that stuff is bouncing off of satellites in, the space in order to get you to where you're trying to go. All of those things are trackable.
right.
And then it
But
didn't help that he plugged his phone into it because then they certainly had him, you know, where the whole time that he was going, his phone was also pinging because it was plugged in.
right. I guess the thing that the narrative what happened in the house, the only way that we know what happened is by what Curtis said. When he said Jimmy just went crazy and kept hitting and hitting and hitting, and he said, "Oh, stop, stop, that's enough," because he's so wonderful. Again, he kept painting himself as this wonderful guy and stuff, and I don't know. We don't know if that's actually
Well,
what happened.
well, Jimmy Rodgers really wasn't painted as a wonderful guy because they had nobody testify for him. There was no defense. There was no defense. Like they absolutely just rested their case after the prosecution was done. They
That was shocking.
completely hinged their defense on all of these motions for, dismissal and mistrial, and all of the sidebars of the lawyers was ridiculous. Um, just arguing petty, stupid things, and then for what reason? They did not put one witness on the stand, not one character witness, nothing. He didn't testify. So after the prosecution was done, they argued for an acquittal, and the judge denied it, and then they sat there and rested their case. They didn't put anybody up there to refute anything that the prosecution said.
It was shocking. He didn't have any family. He didn't have any other friends. Nothing. That's crazy. It's
I
shocking.
know. And you didn't hear about anything about his childhood or anything because nobody was. Now granted, the girlfriend was a witness for the prosecution, but the defense could have, on their cross examination, asked her about his family life and stuff if they were going to try to paint some kind of decent picture of him. But and then you watch him and he's smirking and smiling when they're talking about this poor woman being bludgeoned to death with a hammer.
Yeah, I know. A few times I would watching him, and he was talking to his lawyer, and he was smiling at him and stuff. And I was like, you do know that you're on trial here, right, dude? I mean, he was just, I don't know. It's like he was in another world half the time
It
and
was
stuff.
like he just absolutely did not care. And I do understand that Curtis Wright is a convicted felon. I mean, but to me, sometimes you have to take that in context. When you have drug issues and your felony convictions are drugs, I mean, we all know what happens to people who get addicted to drugs. They do, I mean, they don't normally murder people, but they steal and they're going to end up, possibly selling drugs, so they're going to get busted with large amounts of it and all that. All of that is kind of in the same circle of things with the drugs. Um, I have to think that because what was suggested was that Mark Sievers, the husband, offered Curtis $100,000 to make sure that the murder happened. Now, mind you, Mark Sievers wanted him to use a gun to shoot her, and Curtis did not want to do that. So I still don't. That does not make sense to me either. I mean, if you're a felon, that's one thing. You don't want to be around firearms. But if you're going to murder somebody, that kind of throws the idea of, oh, I'm a felon, I can't do that out the window, doesn't it?
Right. That was the stupidest thing ever. And then I don't understand what the danger was that he kept saying. Well, Mark said the kids would be in danger if she got,
I
if
think
he
that
left him.
was okay. That was okay. So she was having an affair.
Okay.
We know she was having an affair. Um, so I think that Mark Sievers probably imagined that divorce was imminent. I mean, they were having financial problems, and we don't know. I mean, we probably will find out when Mark Sievers' trial starts next month, but we don't know the cause of their financial strain, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. No
Um,
idea.
they both worked
Apparently,
together,
she was making a lot of money too. Yeah.
right? Um, so she was having an affair, and it is possible that uh she was saying she was going to divorce him or whatever, and that would certainly put him in a bind. I think okay,
But the kid.
because Mark Sievers and Curtis, um uh I think because they were such longtime friends, I think that Mark absolutely knew what it would take for Curtis to be sympathetic enough to not necessarily commit the crime, but to help him make sure that it happened. Whether it be he had to, hire somebody else or whatever. Because let's face it, if Curtis was so worried about not using a gun because he's a felon, he could have absolutely just hired somebody else to shoot her. He didn't do that because, evidently he's not that smart. So he picks this young kid, and I'm sure that, I'm sorry, I absolutely think that Jimmy knew what he was getting into, and I'm sure that Curtis was like, "Oh, you're young, even, even if you get even if we get caught, you can probably get it down to manslaughter and not get very many years because you're young, and people will feel, the jury will feel like you can be, uh, you could still be a good citizen, if you get out. I mean, you don't know any of that kind of conversation that went on because nobody ever brought that up. I don't understand why the prosecution um, didn't focus on, like, what was the conversations that was had between Curtis and Jimmy that kind of sealed the deal, because you didn't hear any of that either. Curtis never said, "Oh, well, we sat down and had this discussion, and I told him, I would offer him." Now, it did come out that it was suggested that he offered Jimmy $10,000 for this. Now, to Jimmy, $10,000 would be a lot of money. I mean,
Sure.
he's working at Doe Run. He's working for JB Contracting, mostly working at Doe Run. We know, uh, we, being that we live here, know that that's, it's not an ideal situation for working. And it's hard work. And he's not making a ton of money. And, he's trying to take care of this girlfriend and her kids. And, she was pregnant. $10,000 is a lot to somebody like that.
Sure. And she already had kids too, so they already
Right.
had other children, so he was supporting all of them. So I did they say? They never did say if she worked. I'm assuming she didn't do anything, so maybe he was supporting everybody.
He was, yeah, she was a stay-at-home mom. He was supporting everyone.
So so that's what I'm saying. That's still in the way I was thinking. Well, okay, if I'll give you $10,000 if you drive me up to Florida, if you help drive me to Florida and stuff, and you know, I don't know. I guess I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but
Okay, but Maria, if I offered you $10,000 to ride with me to Maine, tell me you
right.
wouldn't ask me why you were offering me $10,000 to ride with you to Maine. I mean, to ride with me to Maine.
Well, sure. I'm sure you would give me a good story. That's what I'm saying. Maybe you gave him a story. I got to go up to Mark's house. I got to do some computer work at his house and stuff. And
Okay, but yeah, but if I said, oh, okay, well, I have to do some computer work for my friend that lives up there. I mean, you're intelligent enough to know that $10,000 to take a trip with somebody is kind of a ridiculous offering.
yeah, but I'm thinking this guy was not very intelligent. He just seemed like he was just
Well,
out
obviously,
there.
because he was friends with Curtis, right? I mean, when you're friends with somebody who can get you into that kind of trouble, I mean, obviously your judgment is not the best.
Right. Right. And I do think that the girlfriend was very credible. I don't think she was up there. She seemed very scared.
Right.
Um, and I don't think she was putting on any kind of no, that the other lawyer. Oh my gosh, he was like ripping her apart and saying what that she was. What did he
Oh my
call her?
gosh, rake it in the dough. Rake it in the dough the because she um because she asked them to help her pay her rent. Um because here's the thing. It was better for her if if Jimmy did not get arrested, that he could stay living at the house with her, earning a living and paying the rent and paying all the bills, rather than her, tell them the truth of what happened and him being thrown in jail and her having no way to pay her bills. So she, told them, well, I'm going to have some help somehow. So they give her $400 a month.
Right.
$400 a month. Now we know here that's like, for instance, in my subdivision where I live, you're not going to rent a house in this subdivision hardly for less than $1,000 a month.
Exactly.
$400 a month is a drop in the bucket just to pay the rent. Now, granted, they're in a little bit of a cheaper area, but still, it's not cheap. $400 is not going to, make her rich. Now, the way that the defense kind of sent the message out with that was, okay, she's been getting $400 a month since he was arrested, and that totals 18,000, $342, whatever it was, but $18,000. She's been raking in the money. Okay, no, she's been having to pay bills. $400 a month isn't even enough to feed all those kids, much the
Right.
less to pay your rent. So, no, she's not raking in the money, and she's worse off with Jimmy being in jail. So she actually had no motive to lie at all about what
Not
happened.
right. Not at all. Not at all. And stuff. And she was scared. And the fact that she said he was a good dad. You know, he was a good guy. I mean,
Right.
they took, you know, he took. She didn't say anything bad about him, except for
Right. She didn't get up there and say, "Oh my gosh, he beat me every other week and, we had all these problems." None of that. She did not do any of those things. She just told them what happened.
right. Yeah. But that one lawyer, he was just ripping her apart, and I can't remember the word he kept saying over and over again to try and drill it into the jury's head. He was saying that the other side was saying stuff over and over again to drill it into, but he was doing it
Right.
because there was a name he kept calling her. It wasn't money hungry. I can't remember what he was calling her and stuff, but over and over again that she was doing this so that she could for the money,
Right. It was
because
almost
the
like she had this.
cops.
He kept saying she's got this windfall. It's not a windfall. It's not like they said, "Here's $18,000." You know, it's not a windfall because she's getting it monthly in increments of $400. And let's face it, it's probably not even going straight to her. It's probably going straight to her rent or whatever.
And then accusing the cops of threatening her and stuff. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, dude, you're really going above and beyond here. You're accusing the police
Right.
officers
Oh, well,
too
they
now
accused
of
he
threatening
that he
her.
also accused the police officers of feeding the story to Curtis. Right.
Right, right. And let's not forget the big thing. There was the fact that when the cops went to, which they had to, they couldn't put in there that he was in jail or something. He was locked up already, and they went there to talk to him, and he said, "Well, it's just 25 to something, and stuff. No big deal,
Oh,
not
right,
none.
Jimmy
They didn't think
Rodgers
we,
when they arrested
yeah,
him.
right,
When they arrested him, he says in Missouri it's 15 to 20. I'm not, that's okay by
yeah,
me.
that's fine. Second degree murder, no big deal." He pretty much admitted it right there. They didn't get it on camera. They didn't get it. They didn't get it on video
Right.
or
Right.
recorded it. But they didn't have a chance.
And
But
that was
it's like,
two detectives he said that in front of. Not just
mm-hmm.
one. So it's not like, his word against his word. No, it was two of them that heard him say that.
Right, right. So they're
And see,
calling
that
those
just
two
shows you
guys a
how
liar.
dumb he is because the crime wasn't committed in Missouri. The crime was committed in Florida, and so he's under Florida rules there.
Yeah, yeah. So he's just like, just admitting it, just straight out admitting it. You can't admit something like that and then go back and plead innocent.
I had no idea. And let's just take this, let's take him at face value, right? Or at least what, because he never spoke. We never heard a thing that he said anywhere. Um, let's just take it at face value that he had no clue, right? He just thought he was helping Curtis, drive to Florida so he could do some network management for, the company. Okay, and then he gets down there. Obviously, there's a point at which he realizes that's not exactly what they're doing. I mean, there is a point at which he realizes this is not exactly what I was told. He doesn't call the police. He doesn't, say, "Hey, I got to get out of here," and, go find a way to get home. No, he stays. And even if he drove drove Curtis to the house and Curtis committed the crime by himself, and then Curtis came back, and then they came back to Missouri, and he got rid of evidence. Now we do know he got rid of evidence. That's a fact.
Right,
And um, he still is culpable for the murder, the way that the law is.
right.
Not
Just for
not
being
first degree murder, but and I think that probably one of the biggest reasons why the jury convicted him of second degree murder and not first
second.
degree murder is
Mm-hmm.
because they did not find that second hammer.
Right, they really, and because he didn't use any burner phones, he didn't. Well, I mean, granted, they got rid of the burner phones, but they couldn't find any traceable, correspondence with Mark saying, that he was in on the
Well,
plan.
there was no correspondence either that they could track between Curtis and Jimmy, because there's no way that Mark would have conversed with more than one person about it. Mark was only going to converse with his friend that he trusted. However, the reason why there's no conversation between Curtis and Jimmy is because they did it in person, which was probably dumb on Curtis's part.
Right.
But, when you're a 5-time convicted felon, you obviously haven't perfected your trade yet.
Yeah, it was not a very good. So, I mean, they get there and they got themselves all wrapped up. First of all, okay, if they said they were not going to do with the hammer, that was just a second thought. Why he wasn't planning on just putting her in a chokehold when he found her and stuff. Okay, putting somebody in a chokehold, that's not going to be very bloody. Why are you wrapping yourself all up?
Right.
If you're not planning on anything being bloodied up, why are you wrapping yourself all up so tight? I mean, just wearing gloves would have been enough, and the suit and all that stuff. To me, it almost implies that they were thinking it was going to be bloody.
Right.
And
they had
nasty
to.
look,
They already knew. They knew what they were going to do. Absolutely.
Right. That proves it, I think, because I mean, otherwise you just you'd go in, you'd wear gloves. You wouldn't even have to wear any special clothes. You just go in there, you have your gloves on there, put her in a chokehold, and leave. If that's what they were just going to do. Oh no, we just saw we happened to see these hammers and stuff, but you're all wrapped up so that you're not going to get any blood on you. And don't sound right.
Well, and let's look at the fact that what kind of terrible person is Mark Savers besides the fact that he wants his wife killed? He goes to Curtis when they're getting ready for his wedding, the rehearsal dinner, and the wedding day. He's talking to him about having his wife killed. It's ridiculous.
Right. That's like you care about your friend so much that you're going to bring this up at his wedding.
At his, what's supposed to be the best day of your life, right?
And imagine Curtis's wife, that poor thing. I mean, how sad is that to, have to find out that your husband you just married is, he's a murderer. I mean, she already knew he was a criminal. I would hope she already knew he was a criminal.
She had to have known he was a criminal. I mean, honest to goodness, he actually seemed very forthright. He answered the questions. He was trying not to lie. I mean, I do know that some of the answers that he gave sounded a little well thought out, but he had to be very careful not to lie, because if they catch him in a lie, his deal's off the table.
Oh, let's go back to the fact that this really blew me away, and it just kills me when he's talking about setting up for the wedding. And they're asking him, oh, his friends, we got together, we set up for the wedding and stuff. And,
Are you there? I think we lost your sound. Okay, you said we lost your sound there for a minute.
And you've known him since you were both born in the same hospital. I mean, what? How do you rectify that? How do you go from that to that? That's crazy.
I don't know. Does anybody in the chat have any questions? I want to make sure we get any questions from the chat. But go ahead. You can still talk.
I just that one blew me away. That one threw me for a loop, And he's getting with God, which it seems like we've been watching a lot of these cases now that they all just seem to right afterwards. They're getting right.
They
with
have
God.
no other place to turn. They have no other place to turn.
He's talking about becoming a preacher, but I mean, come on. You know, what were you thinking? I mean,
Well,
I
look at all the detail they went into about missing the hot dogs, and that this whole thing, the whole conversation about this murder started with a trip to go back to get the hot dogs that was missing.
right. Had he not have to go get the hot dogs, none of this would have happened. I beg to differ.
It would have still happened. The fact that the man was was had enough gall to even take somebody's really special day and turn it into a murder plot is ridiculous.
And I know their lawyers were saying, his lawyer, Jimmy's lawyer, they were saying that this was like a crime.
Is it raining in your house?
I'm in my car. Sorry,
Is it raining outside?
Yes, it is
Oh,
pouring. It's not raining.
God, I don't know. You see,
Oh,
my
yeah,
tiger blocks the window.
Oh yeah, it is just pouring. Yeah, my husband's going to take his car to the shop, and I have to follow him so that he can come back home, so he doesn't have to wait there for 3 hours or so. Um, yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Where I was just talking about.
I'm sorry.
We're talking about the rain.
I'm sorry.
We don't know. Once Mark gets up there, we're probably going to get a whole other story and stuff, because they were trying to say that, well, killing somebody with a hammer, that is a crime of passion, and stuff. And well, I don't know. I don't know. That is kind of brutal. I mean, that is some really brutal stuff. He met that woman before. He knew the children and stuff. I mean, at least Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy, yeah. Oh, they're saying, oh, Jimmy couldn't have done it because that's a crime of passion, and it has to be somebody you know. I beg to differ. It's quite the opposite. Jimmy's like, oh, you hit him here. I could do that too. Woo, woo, boom, 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 boom. Whereas him, he knew the family. He knew the children. He went to the funeral and comforted the children. To me, that is even worse than Jimmy not knowing her. I mean, Jimmy's like, oh, I don't know him, I don't know this gal, so I just hit her over the head. I'm getting some money. But him, he knew her. He had met her. He wow.
Well, and
wow.
and I mean, men typically have aggression anyway, so it's very possible that whatever happened, they either fed off of each other, which that happens, that caused them to bludgeon her to such an extent.
So that the children wouldn't be in danger. Again, with the danger. I can't wait for the other trial, because...
But you know what? I bet it doesn't even come up, because I bet that is just a story that he told Curtis, because I don't think Curtis would have seen it this way, but it was probably just a story to kind of put the icing on the cake to let Curtis know how this is really the only option I have. It has to happen this way.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Yeah, for all we know, I mean, we don't know if this is where it happened. We don't even know if that really happened, that Mark approached him at his wedding. He could have approached him at another time. We really don't know
what
when.
Right. And honestly, it's probably the best thing Curtis could have done. Taking a plea deal, I think he would have done it regardless, because I mean, just think about the fact that he went down to Florida and killed this woman, came back to Missouri, went home. His wife gets a phone call that Teresa's been killed, and they have to go back down to Florida.
The wife insists
to be there for the family and go to the funeral.
It's crazy.
And when Curtis talked about that, he was like, well, I had to. I mean, I understood why he had to, because otherwise he was going to have to tell his wife what he did.
Right.
I mean, there was really, there's no way out of that.
Right. My wife insisted we go there and be there for them.
And they were acting like, that was so nefarious of him, and that was like proof that like how terrible he is. No, I think he didn't have a choice, and I can't imagine how difficult that was for him to have to do, because I mean, if it was the difference between going and doing something like that as opposed to turning to your spouse and saying, yeah, I really can't go because I murdered her. And then like to not go, like if he would have not gone, that would have made more suspicion on him anyway.
Now, his wife knew that he was going to Florida, right? Yeah.
Right. But she
So-
wouldn't have thought anything odd of it.
But
Because
did he tell her that he was going to Mark's house?
originally he was supposed to go to do network maintenance. He was supposed to go and do some upgrades that needed to happen by a certain date. But then Mark Sievers changed that and said, no, we're going out of town. We're going to visit her family. And then, he was like, okay, well, the murder has to happen now because she's got to come back and we're going to stay longer and you can murder her while she's home before we get back.
Mm-hmm.
Just terrible. I am so interested to see what happens in his trial.
I imagine a lot more stuff is going to come out.
I would think so, because, and I'm wondering if it wouldn't have been in Jimmy's better interest to plead to a lesser charge. Like, I think he could have probably pled to manslaughter, testified against Mark, and that would have been that would have made things a little more interesting, I think, too.
Yeah, I don't think
because I don't know. I am hesitant to believe he's going to get a very light sentence. The judge is giving him his sentence, so I cannot imagine, because it's kind of funny because the judge slipped. When they were talking after he was convicted, he slipped and said first-degree murder, and they were like, no, it's second-degree murder. And so that kind of makes me think that he thought it was going to come back first-degree murder, and so he may not get a light sentence.
That judge, he kind of he was kind of cracking me up. He seemed like he was like he got a little sarcasm and stuff, and it seemed like he was like, so when are we going to get this over with, and how much longer we got? And he was just like, he wanted to stay on a time schedule. He wanted it done and over with. It seemed to me he was just like, let's get this over with and stuff. Bam, 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 and stuff. And it's just, and I felt like Jimmy's lawyer was defending Mark more than he was Jimmy half the time. He was, saying, oh, they want to say that Mark. So you already know what he's gonna be saying he's innocent because because the lawyer's like, they want to say that Mark hired this guy to do this.
I hate to say this, but the fact that the other two are convicted now, I can't imagine he's going to get off.
No way.
Because they have no reason stand alone to kill her.
No, not at all. And like I said in the beginning, I would say, well, unless maybe Curtis was having an affair with the wife, or something, but he just got married. Nah.
And he wasn't making any trips to Florida either.
No,
so
right, yeah. No, and stuff. And I really don't think the wife seemed like she was a very classy woman. I don't think she was going there. So she could have done a lot better. I don't think that that poor woman, I just can't imagine what she suffered. Oh my gosh. And stuff. I don't know if she actually yelled why or I don't know if that was a lie. We don't know for sure because Curtis said it, but I don't know. But if she turned around and saw him, she would have been shocked,
Yeah.
Terrible. It was not very well thought out. If they were trying to do it, burglary. They said they were supposed to be a burglary originally, but they didn't. They didn't stage it. They didn't do anything. They just hit her in the head and left. They weren't thinking at all. I don't know.
Well, even Curtis said he didn't realize that it would take multiple blows with a hammer to kill her. I mean, he did say that.
Yeah, wow.
He seemed very surprised that after 3 blows that she was, still not dead.
I'm standing up.
Right. And
Yeah.
right.
Oh, man. Gosh.
I know.
God. I mean, I guess if you got hit in the head with the hammer and stuff, you wouldn't go down the first blow. But I would think if for 3 blows,
Thank you, the
you'd be
Bryan
down.
clan.
I would
Sorry,
think
the
you'd
Bryan
be down
clan's
for the
leaving.
count. Okay.
Yeah,
After
you would think so, but obviously not.
Wow. Man.
But there was
Crazy.
some minor discussion about Jimmy and his obsession with hammers anyway.
Right, the hammer. Right, they were saying that Jimmy the Hammer. It's yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he hadn't killed anybody yet. I mean, he wasn't a murderer. Neither one of them were murderers. I mean, how do you go from being drugs, theft, blah blah blah? That's a leap to going from that to murdering.
Yeah, you have to have an incentive to take that jump. And he had no incentive to kill her in particular. And yeah, I mean, the fact that what they found like $40,000 worth of cash
in the safe.
Right. In different places in the house, and they had more than one safe. And so it would have been very easy to stage a robbery if they had stolen all that. But if you had been promised $100,000 to kill her, like, actually stealing anything wouldn't have been a necessary thing in your mind, I wouldn't think.
And I think because they weren't murderers before, they never killed anybody before. I mean, they say
probably didn't know the
war and stuff.
They didn't know what. Right. They didn't know what their reaction would be when it happened, and they probably did freak out. And were like, "Yeah, let's get the hell out of here."
Yeah. Wow. Man. Oh. Wow.
All right. Last call for questions. Last call for questions. Go ahead. You can continue. I was thinking people would have some questions, but yeah, I am very interested to see what happens with Mark Sievers. So obviously, we will follow that trial and then have another discussion about it, because I can't imagine he's going to walk. There's just too much. These two have been convicted now. And it's not like, and Jimmy, it's not like he could have been convicted of manslaughter, but he wasn't. They got him for second degree. I can't imagine that Mark Sievers is going to walk.
No, not at all. I don't even know. I can't imagine. I don't know what he's going to plead. If he's gonna say not guilty. Just
bye, Eminem Mama. Thanks for coming.
Really good lawyers. He better have some really good ones. He's
got to have better ones than Jimmy's. He's got to have better ones than Jimmy's lawyers, I'll tell you.
Yeah, they weren't that good. The woman, she was just she was not good at all. She was getting flustered, and
although if he
had up the girlfriend.
If he'd have gotten the $4 million, he could have afforded some really good lawyers, but I'm quite sure that because his wife was murdered, they didn't pay out yet.
Yeah. No, the woman was I think the worst.
Right.
Of the lawyers and stuff. She wasn't that good. She was getting all flustered, and then she was making comments under her breath.
Yeah, she was a little hot-headed. And I think that I think the judge was getting irritated with that too. And she was sighing and blah 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 blah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Enough with the comments underneath your breath.
All right. Well, since it doesn't look like we have any questions, we're going to call it quits here. Thank you very much for joining me for another discussion. I have a lot to get done today, so I know you have a hair appointment to get to, so.
Yep, and I'm waiting here for my husband to get out so I can drive him back home.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who came. Please hit the likes on your way out. And if you know anybody who might be interested in this case, feel free to share this video and send it out. Thank you, Kaz. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will talk to you all later. We'll see you next time, and we will definitely be covering the Mark Sievers trial. So, till next time, bye.
All right, bye.